Good evening, everyone. I am Dr. Julie Johnson. I am the Assistant Dean and Director of Continuing and Professional Studies at the School of Communication and Information here at Rutgers University. Tonight, we're going to talk about Digital Asset Management and Artificial Intelligence Certificate Program with our program lead, Thomas Stilling, and our Assistant Director, Scott Delfino. The way in which we are going to do our little agenda for this evening is Thomas is going to share a bit about the program. I'm going to talk about a bit of the logistics, and then we're going to turn it over to all of you to ask questions. And in the next coming days, I want you to watch your email because you'll be getting a special gift from Rutgers to help you save a little bit of money on this certificate program. So I'm going to turn it over to Thomas, and welcome.
Hi, thank you for joining. I know it's 7 p.m. on a Thursday, and so we're going to, just a little background for myself. So I have worked in a couple of different industries. Originally, I came from 20th Century Fox, and I ran product and promotion management there. And I remember one of my very first meetings at Fox, where they declared that the project we were working on would end SharePoint as we know it, and SharePoint would go away that year. And that was probably 20 years ago. So if you're a fan of the Die Hard movies, I worked in Nakatomi Plaza. I've also run digital strategy for Forrester, and I've been teaching courses here at Rutgers, I think for 6 years. It could be 7 at this point. So I also teach governance, and I've helped support creative operations and metadata. So thank you for joining. And Scott, if you want to go ahead to the next slide. So part of what we do, and I went a little old school on these slides on purpose. I think often when I see AI advertising, you get visions of space and glowing lines and everything else. And the reality is AI is about the work, and AI is here in how we work, both professionally and personally. So even for systems that are using like maybe older platforms or older ecosystems, AI is readily available. And we used to call it, for companies that are very strict about AI and still trying to understand their policies, you as professionals are often bringing in your own AI. So you have it on your phone, you have it in your day-to-day life, but it's embedded now in a lot of different enterprise offerings and a lot of smaller offerings. So being used for search, as you know, there's so much that's happening with automated tagging, and in terms of tuning, how you can do tagging. You've got workflow, which is in many ways, the non-gen side of AI. How do you use agentic workflows in order to continue to boost productivity and to make things more efficient? And it's really just become such a foundational piece of so many types of groups. And right now I teach governance, and we have representatives from the armed forces, we have it from nonprofits, we have organizations, and AI is the #1 topic. And especially if you're being hired into a role, more and more the conversation is, well, tell us about the platforms you use. How do you use AI? What's the governance that you talk through that? And so as you're considering either a DAM career or one that works with digital media, AI is part of that conversation from the minute that you start having that interview and start working towards that role. So it's present in all of what we do. And this course over 12 weeks is really meant to be a non-tool specific course, but how do you work with AI and digital assets with structure, with governance, and really aligned to what your organization needs. So, and thank you for joining. But yeah, so part of the reality is AI is here and embedded, and in that role, any role that you're on, it's going to be so critical to understand how to use that. So next slide. One of the sort of topics that has come up at different conferences, and we talk about digital asset management and really about almost removing the dam, because it's asset management environments and asset management ecosystems. And you have to be deliberate and purposeful in moving forward with that. And one of the, and we've all, I'm sure, been on a project or a program where someone says go and you go running through the gate. And after you run through that gate, then you look around and say, hey, where are you? So in the program, we talk about how do you actually assess where you're at in terms of readiness. And even though AI offers so much potential, it doesn't mean the good practices that you've developed for governance and for data and for metadata go out the window. It actually requires a better foundation to work on. I think we've all read enough about how AI, even on the workflow pieces, if it doesn't have that good foundation, so how do you implement AI in a way that can be meaningful? So we really walk through over the course of the initial weeks, like how do you assess your readiness? We talked about governance and guardrails, and these are tried and true that now have to be adopted for this new sort of ecosystem moment where you've got AI, which could potentially be both making decisions and also helping you in the different pieces that you're working on. We talk about one of the sections that I really enjoy is we talk about AI in the wild, and we do a review of portals and websites that are out there to really help you understand that when you're doing something on the back end or you're introducing capabilities and functionality, you also then have the outcomes and the outputs. And so many different retail sites and so many different sites that we work with now have AI built into them, and they're constantly testing and constantly doing A/B testing and really trying to improve. And so we walk through, like, when you see AI in use in the DAM in the background, this is what comes out in terms of the outcome and how it's being used. One of the articles I read the other day was talking about how we're always using AI in so many different ways now. And it used to be very apparent, and now it's becoming less apparent. And part of what we focus on is the how do you make AI that invisible partner for you, not taking over your systems, but really complementing the work that you want to do. And then we end up with a capstone project. And so after the course, after you finish the 12 weeks, that final week is really about discussing with your peers and learning from each other and putting together a plan about how you would activate AI to drive impact and to drive value for your organization. So next slide. So I mentioned a little bit that we don't focus on tools, we focus on capabilities. And even part of what we'll talk about in the discussions and we talk about in the assignments is we do reference tools that are out in the marketplace. We want you to be aware of them. And even though it's not an endorsement of certain tools, what's out there because they highlight different capabilities that are available to you. And so we think about in this digital ecosystem, what does that capability look like when you're implementing AI for DAM? So looking at, we just had a call today, we were talking about it, working with a company, and their leadership just wants to hear about AI. And they almost to the point where they're just like, come on, just do it. And I think what we really want to help is in that structure for evaluating how you implement AI and what's the best features to have in DAM, where are those opportunities that make sense for you? I think a lot of DAM vendors and a lot of companies, they have a lot of shiny, what I refer to as disco balls. And what you really need is that when you're working with any system, you have to align to fit. So what's the fit for your program? What's the fit for that project? What's the fit for the team? And it's through that lens and that conversation in the capstone project that we talk about, okay, we've covered governance, we've talked about the guardrails, we've visioned and seen what's out in the wild and how you connect sort of that behind the scenes moment to what the customer or the user sees, and how do you bring that together. So really helping you shape not just learning about capabilities of AI, but learning about it in the context of how you will actually use it. And I think that's what is a little bit different about our program and our approach. There are a lot of wonderful AI programs out there that teach very general, very usable knowledge about AI. But when you think about digital media and you think about asset management, it's really about how do you draw in the good practices to make that a successful moment for you and for your organization. So looking at the opportunities and talking about that assessment, and then thinking about how do you translate that strategy into a plan, and then how do you design it for that environment. And part of one of our discussions, we talk about, what's a design sprint look like? So when you're thinking about, okay, here's my user need or the use case, and this is the constraints that I have, but let's have some fun, and let's go into a design sprint and really together come up with what is the best capability for that organization. And purposely, the discussions are meant to have you lean on each other and also comment and work with each other on the different pieces and the different components that we'll talk through. So it's a really interesting where you're assessing, you're looking at the strategy, you're comparing and sharing notes in the active discussions, and then making that really fit for purpose for your environment. And it's exciting. And what we found is for many students, almost surprising in some ways, at least for me, learning over these last years has been the real commitment to the discussion boards and to giving feedback. So, we'll set up the discussion, we'll set up the assignments, but you see such synergy and people in different industries learning from each other. So we have, a digital asset manager from the women's soccer league. Then you have them talking to someone who works at an art gallery, who then talks to someone who works at an energy company. And one of the epiphanies that comes through that is the shared experience and being like, hey, I've seen this in this environment, maybe you could try that. So we really try to make this as interactive, both with the professors and then with the class as well. So when you're thinking about all of what this experience gives you, we want you to come out of here and be able to lead conversations, not just on the strategy, but really how it functions, bringing it down to earth. And when an executive or a leader comes to you and says, hey, help me understand what we're doing with AI, like you've asked for certain funding or you've asked for a team or a capability, what am I getting out of this? And not only can you speak to the strategy of it, but you can speak to that impact and the steps that you're going to take to get there. And so the course is a combination of AI, asset management around media and content, and also how do you structure it for success. And I think what we're seeing more and more, in terms of dam systems, is they're often next to MAM or they're next to a PIM system, or they're just in concert with a lot of different tools. And in that, we want to make sure that when you're assessing the work that you need to get done and you're looking for those needs, you're not just looking at the dam, but you're looking in a more broad, holistic sense. So moving from assessing, looking at the capabilities, really building in that structure to get you the pieces that you need, and then coming together and learning from each other in this capstone project to take away a living plan that you can use in your own role and in your own organization. So it's about applying the content, applying what you'll learn, and learning from each other. And I have a great blast because I continue to learn too from all the students. We always encourage people to share, and sometimes people share a lot, and you find out so many wonderful things about experiments that teams are working on and what's not working. And so coming out of here, this is meant to be very practical, very grounded, and leave you with artifacts and with tools that you can use as you go forward. So just a little bit of an introduction to the course, and then happy to sort of take questions. And I know Scott and Julie are going to talk a little bit on the logistics, but I love a good AI conversation and asset management conversation, and really glad to continue to work with Rutgers and also to help teach this course. So thank you for joining. And, Julie, how do we want to do some questions? Hopefully that was a good walkthrough.
Thank you so much. I have a question for you, Thomas.
Sure.
So tell us a little bit about your instructional team that comes alongside you in this program.
Oh, of course. So we have 3 instructors for the program. So you have myself, and for those that join a little bit later, my background comes from media and entertainment, working at 20th Century Fox, and then running digital strategy at Forrester Research. And then I have 2 wonderful humans who've helped design, partner, and teach the course. We have Santiago, who is currently a head of post-production at Wayfair, and he brings with him a lot of experience on what's happening in the wild, and that's actually his section is the one that has that course, which is really fun because you're seeing how does it translate, how do these puzzle pieces for AI translate into what goes into the market. And then my second instructor that we work with together is Misty Vaught, and so she comes from Orange Logic, and so she's had a variety of roles and has been working in this space for some years. So at the end, when you're doing your capstone project, what she's doing is bringing in her experience about like how do you get something practical out of this? How do you move forward and take the capabilities and what we've learned into that conversation so that you have a toolkit for you? And Scott has been very helpful to put up the course learning objectives. And I won't read through all of them since we touched on many of these, but there is a wonderful, we're going to assess. We talked about a little bit about governance and how we want to integrate those capabilities into the environment. And again, coming together with that capstone project. So hopefully that's a good answer, Julie. And thank you for reminding me to mention who the other wonderful instructors are.
You're perfect. One of the things that I love about our programs is that we really leaned into best practices in adult learning theory. So you will see in this program that the lectures for the program are pre-recorded. So if you're having a few moments during lunch, or if you're on the train, you can listen to lectures as you're doing life. And then when time is available, do some of the readings, the discussion boards, the assignments. It's designed to work around your busy schedule, but we also were intentional about having Thomas and Santiago and Misty live with you for the 4 weeks that they are leading the module. So they're going to be in the discussion board with you. They're going to stretch you. They're going to challenge your thinking. They're going to affirm you. They're going to provide you with more resources. They're going to pour into your potential in real time. In addition, those assignments are also opportunities for them to get to know you more, the context in which you are leading in, and provide you with not only great feedback to your assignments, but again, helping you think a bit outside the box, build that strategic thinking, problem solving, higher order thinking. So that was very intentional when we created the program. I want to share with you a little bit about, we are currently in the middle of the application season, and so we're taking applications for DAM and AI until April 3rd. And I'm somebody who always likes a good coupon. So right now is early enrollment, which allows you to save 15%, which is about $500. We do have some people who prefer to pay monthly. And if you want to pay monthly, then that cost is $10.50 per month. We have some people who come to us by utilizing a Sallie Mae loan. But we also have people who get sponsored by their employers. And when you do your application, there's a question about that. If you're getting sponsored by your employer, we ask for a couple of things so that we can send an invoice to them. Probably our program coordinator is going to connect with you to figure out, is that going to come through you? Should we directly work with your business office? We're very flexible with both. We send those invoices through DocuSign, and the business office can tell us that they're sending us a check, or if it's a wire transfer. There's lots of ways in which you can come to Rutgers and learn with us. Scott, next slide. So if you go to our website, you will see at the bottom the red ribbon. On the left side, it says professional certificates. If you click there, you will see the DAM and AI program for you to learn more about the program. And then on the far right side, it says get started. We're going to zoom in a little bit on that. And when you click on that, there's a drop-down menu that says apply now, and that's where you're going to locate the application to apply to the program. We do our best to have a quick turnaround for decisions regarding acceptance into the program. Because this is an advanced certificate, we want to make sure that it's the right fit for our students to be successful. We're very proud of the fact that we have about 98% completion rates of this program. I think the one time that we didn't have a student finish, it's because a baby arrived early, which was not intended. And so focus turned to the baby instead of class. But we really work hard to take care of our students. And so once you hear from us, then we will send you links for actually enrolling. We have an enrollment system. You can use a credit card to pay. We try and make it super easy. But I do have a team of great people under Scott's direction that will help you through the process. There's no question that you can't ask that we won't do our best to answer. If after this call you have other questions, we can certainly connect with Thomas and he can answer more questions. But in the moments that we have, questions that you have about the program for Thomas.
Yeah, or any topics related to AI, digital asset management that you might be working with right now. Happy to share any thoughts.
I have a question. I'm coming from the facility side of Northboard Education. So, how would this help my trades personnel and my custodial staff?
It's an interesting question. In terms of facilities, do they work with the school's programs, and do they have access to the school's computer systems and asset ecosystem?
Yes, we do.
You do. So typically, what do you, if I can ask, what do you typically use it for? And we can sort of brainstorm a little bit.
So we use it for work order system, asset essential, and school dues. Just tracking our work orders, our
Yep.
performance, labor hours, and stuff.
Yeah, I think for work orders, the thought about that is that it is content, and how do you use AI to help either populate the work orders, maybe move them through the process, move them through the approvals. That's where in other, like we've had a couple of students come through the overall DAM program in facilities, and they found it most helpful for working with the amount of paperwork and reconceiving how to deal with the paperwork and just sort of all of the administrative tracking that goes with that. And so we had one student who came through the course, and he was very grateful because he wasn't aware of some of the capabilities that might be available to him, and just like how to use those creatively to help him every day.
Thank you for that,
So,
Thomas.
yeah.
Is your information online where I could, reach out and connect with you sometime either tomorrow or, sometime next week to get more information about the program?
Sure, absolutely. Like I have, I can put my LinkedIn, and actually Julie can send afterwards the email, and you can just shoot me an email to my Rutgers account, and happy to set up time to talk.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, appreciate it. And we've got we got great names, right, Thomas?
Yes, definitely.
There we go. And not to put anyone else on the spot, but any other thoughts or questions? And again, or just ideas about how you're using AI, or challenges, or sort of successes you're having with it.
Repeat that. I'm sorry.
Yeah, any challenges or success with AI right now in your day to day?
Nothing right now as we speak, but I know a couple of my trades personnel and my supervisors, they more so using it more than I am because I'm more so like just dealing with the budget right now. So it's a new program that we just started with Asset Essential. So it wouldn't be challenging for me right now because I ain't been using it. But far as them, that's why I said like we could talk offline, just to go over some of the questions they may have about the program where I could, if it's something that could work for my school district, definitely get you a PO over, right away, so we could begin the training.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No, I think you and definitely reach out because and you were talking about like orders and budget, there's so many different applications that could be used here. And again, we try to ground it in very practical, like how are people actually using it. And again, lots of wonderful AI courses are out there. I think they tend to be much more general, and this gets much more specific and practical. Anyone else? Julie, any other questions from other sessions?
I have one more question for you, Thomas. Tell me a little
Sure.
bit more about the capstone project that people will create. What does that look like?
Yeah.
And do you have to have a job in DAM currently in order for this program to work for you?
No, you don't. And so and I forget the exact mix, but we have a fair number of students who don't actually have a damn job. They might be using the tool. Maybe they're in finance. Maybe they're in, as we were saying, in facilities. Maybe they're working in creative. So this course is applicable across industries, and it's meant to have that capabilities. So in terms of how we can use that for the capstone project. Again, it's like drawing on each shared experiences and building that together so that when you leave, you're like, okay, so this is my day to day. Maybe I work with the dam, or maybe I'm interacting with the team that's going to bring one up. But I know how to talk about it, and I know how to ask for what would help me the most. And I think that's one of the biggest challenges that a lot of our students face, is that they don't know how to articulate what the needs are and what to ask for. And sometimes you just get confronted by departments that are using all the buzzwords, and that can be really challenging. So part of that capstone is to give you that vocabulary to be successful in communicating what will make you successful.
Thanks for sharing. And thank you all for joining us this evening. If you have questions, please reach out to my team. Scott and his people are ready to support you in your next step in your journey. Have a great evening, everyone.
Thank you for joining. Take care.
Thank you.